Before reading next chapter, I'm going to talk about what I read before. I read the chapter 1, the beginning of the story about James. James lived with his parents in the house on New Sea. He lived happily, but when he and his parents went to London, his parents passed away. So and he left alone. And his house was sold, and then he was raised by two aunts, Spiker. I don't remember the other aunt's name, Spiker. Anyway, they were horrible, and they didn't treat James properly, and they lived on the hillside, and James had no friends to play with it. And outside there was a garden, but desolate garden. It's not garden full of flowers. And only the giant peach tree stood in the middle of the garden. That was story in chapter 1. I'm going to read chapter 2. Here is James only Trotter after he had been living with his aunts for 3 whole years, which is when this story really begins. For now there came a morning when something rather peculiar happened to him, and this thing, which as I say was only rather peculiar, soon caused a second thing to happen which was very peculiar, and then the very peculiar thing in its own turn caused a really fantastically peculiar thing to occur. It all started on a blazing hot day in the middle of summer. Aunt Spongy, Aunt Spiker, and James were all out in the garden. James had been put to work, as usual. This time he was chopping wood for the kitchen stove. Aunt Spongy and Spiker were sitting comfortably in the deck chairs nearby, sipping tall glasses of Fiji lemonade and watching him to see. He didn't stop work for 1 moment. Aunt Spongy was enormously fat and very short, and she had small piggy eyes, a sunken mouth, and one of those white, flabby faces that looked exactly as though it had been boiled. She was like a great white soggy or boiled cabbage. Aunt Spiker's, on the other hand, was lean and tall and bunny, and she wore still rimmed spectacles that fixed on to the end of her nose with a clip. She had a screeching voice and long, wet, narrow lips, and whenever she got angry or excited, little cracks of speech would come shooting out of her mouth as she talked. And there they sat, the two ghastly hags, sipping their drinks, and every now and again screaming at James to chop faster and faster. They also talked about themselves, each one saying how beautiful she thought she was. Aunt Spongy had a long handled mirror on her lap, and she kept picking up and gazing at her own hideous face. "Elegant smell," Aunt Spongy declared, "as lovely as a rose. Just feast your eyes upon my face, observe my shapely nose, beyond my heavenly silky locks. And if I take off both my socks, you'll see my dainty toes. But don't forget," Aunt Spike cried, "how much your tummy shows." Aunt Spongy went ladder. Aunt Spike said, "My sweet, you cannot swing. Beyond my gorgeous curvy shape and my teeth and my charming grin. Oh, but use me, how I adore my dirty looks, and please ignore that pimple on my chin, my dear old trout." Aunt Spongy cried out, "You're only bones and skin. Such loveliness as I possess can only truly shine in Hollywood." Aunt Spongy declared, "Oh, wouldn't that be fine? I'd capture all the nation's hearts. They give me all the leading parts, the stars, with all design. I think you make, Aunt Spike said, a lovely Frankenstein. For James' words, still slaving away at the chopping block, the heat was terrible. He was sweating all over, his arm was aching. The chopper was a large, blunt, thin file, too heavy for a small boy to use. And as he walked, James began thinking about all the other children in the world and what they might be doing at this moment. Some would be loitering to recycle in their garden. Some would be walking cools and picking bunch of the wildflower. And all the little friends whom he used to know would be down by the seaside, playing in the wet sand and splashing around in the water. Great tears began oozing out of James' eyes and rolling down his cheeks. He stopped working and leaned against the chopping blocks, overwhelmed by his own unhappiness. "What's the matter with you?" Aunt Spiker screeched, glaring at him through the top of her steel spectacle. James began to cry. "Stop that immediately and get on to your work, you nasty little beast," Aunt Spongy ordered. "Oh, Auntie Spongy," James cried out. "Auntie Sparkers, couldn't we all three just for once go down to see outsiders on the boats? Wouldn't by far nice to be so hot and awful lonely? You lazy, good-for-nothing brute!" Aunt Spiker shouted. "Beat him!" cried Aunt Spongy. "I certainly will!" Aunt Spiker snapped and she glared at James. James looked back at her and with large, frightened eyes. "I shall beat you later on in the days when I don't feel so hot," she said. "And now get out of my sight, you disgusting little worm, and give me some fish." James turned and ran. He ran up as fast as he could to the far end of the garden and hid himself behind that clump of dirty old rose bush we mentioned earlier on. Then he covered his face with his hands and began to cry and cry.